I'm Stan Hitchcock, and I'd like to read you a story out of my new book, At the Corner of Music Row in Memory Lane. In October of 1987, while I was running CMT, Country Music Television, I'd started a show called Heart to Heart. And I called Keith Whitley and said, "Hey, Keith, let's go down to the Ryman Auditorium and do a Heart to Heart." We set the date, and I called Opryland to get permission to go into the old Opry House because the Ryman had not been reconditioned then and been closed up for a while. But they let us come in. The camera caught Keith and myself walking down the street outside the Ryman and followed us inside. We leaned against one of the old wooden church pews and just relived a lot of the good times we both remembered in that old building. Keith was still shining from his wedding to Lori Morgan, and they had a son born whom he was mighty proud of. It was a wonderful heart-to-heart, one of the favorite times I've ever spent with one of my friends on the tube, and at the end of the show, he was telling me about a new album he was working on. He said that looking at the old Ryman stage reminded him of all his heroes that had stood on that stage. Hank Williams, Bill Monroe, Lefty Frizell. He said Lefty was always my hero, and I always wanted to cut one of his songs, but I never have until this new album. Mary Martin at RCA called me and said she liked the old Lefty Frizell song, "I Never Go Around Mirrors." But she wished it had another verse, because it only had one verse and a chorus. Well, of course, Lefty's dead, but he co-wrote the song with Whitey Shafer. So I thought it was worth a shot. I called Whitey up, and he agreed to write another verse.
When I called him to get the words to it, I sat there and I actually cried over the phone. You know, it was beautiful. So the morning we were getting ready to record that song, I drove by Forest Lawn Cemetery, which is where Lefty's buried. And I know this is going to sound corny to a lot of folks or weird, but I got out beside the marker and I recited the words to that new verse. And when we got in the studio later on that morning, it was just like they turned the lights down real low, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the studio. And later on, we got Alan Frizell, Lefty's brother, to sing harmony with us on the chorus, and it was. Alan sounds so much like Lefty, and it was kind of like it sounds like Lefty singing with me on the song.
Well, as Keith was telling the story about this song, my mind was going back in time, and I remember another time, another group of friends, and the same song. It was a special night. In the early 70s, there'd been a big package show at the auditorium in Atlanta, after which a bunch of the folks gathered in my motel room just to come down after the performance high. I was sitting on the lumpy bed in the corner watching and listening as Lefty Frizell picked up my guitar and sang a song he had just written with Whitey Shafer called "I Never Go Around Mirrors." Over in the other corner of the room, Bobby Bear was sitting deep in thought, staring through the cigarette smoke that filled the room in lazy layers like clouds on a dark summer sky. Leaning against the wall over by the door, Jack Green was deeply lost in the song, and stretched out on the other bed, Jeannie Seeley was listening with her eyes closed, scarcely breathing. It was a special moment, and I thought, Hitchcock, this is good, isn't it? Indeed, it was good. Taking the music the way it was intended, straight from the source, raw, uncut, real. Just a short time later, Lefty died in Nashville, wrung out, used up, and burnt down with nothing left to give. He had sung it all up and gone. That song, "I Never Go Around Mirrors," was one of his last recordings. Little did I know at that time, it would also be one of Keith's last recordings.